Welcome to Reality with Kiki. I'm your host, Kiki, and on this channel, we discuss reality TV, celebrity gossip, and viral topics. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like our content. You can also follow us on our Facebook page. A link will be in the description box below, and we also have it linked in our bio. Okay, so ready to love. So we start this episode off with the men. They're having a discussion because obviously it's their week to eliminate. And in the confessional, Phil is like, "Oh, great! So some of these ladies are gonna have to step it up," and it's just like, please, you. We have not really seen you. You're really quiet and laid back. You've kind of been skating by, in my opinion. So you don't need to be talking about nothing about anybody stepping up. Okay, bye. So then Dante is just like in his confessional, this is a really rigorous process, because you really have to be intentional about getting to know someone. And I'm just like, that's funny because you took no time to get to know Carrie. You made her feel awkward and or just like help to ruin the experience for her. Um you didn't even try. You didn't care. Okay, so we start out with a couple of dates. The first date is with Walter and Zadia. It seems to be a nice date. I really feel like Walter is authentic in his process. Like he shared some things with Zadia. And, one of the things that stuck out to me, he was talking about how, he grew up in a household with all other women. He was the only boy. So I think that translates for him in how he treats women. And so Zadia is like, yeah, well, there are some men who, they love their mama, they love their grandma, and they still treat women like trash. And I'm like, girl, been there. But, he's just like, no. So they seem to really be making a connection. And we move on to Sean and Sabrina. He's just like, she really caught my eye when I first seen her. She feels the same way about when she first seen him. And they seem to be having a really good time. Like they're laughing, joking. Everything is going good. And she brings up the fact that she has a daughter and she doesn't want her daughter to see her like bringing in a bunch of men in and out of the house. Like she kind of wants somebody serious and steady. And I think, probably for her daughter to look at as an example of like what it's like to be in a successful and loving relationship. So Sean is just like, yeah, like I'm interested in you, but I just want to make sure that we basically are on the same page. And he's like, so are you done with kids? And she says yes. And the reason that it makes me chuckle because I know that like that's a deal breaker for him, and that's an issue that he ran into last time with Aisha. It's like a lot of these women are probably mid to upper 30s. If they have kids, they're pretty much done having kids. For various reasons, right? And they have that right. But this man, Sean, he's in his 40s and he's just like, I don't have any kids yet. This is something that I want to experience. And he keeps running into that roadblock, right? But, like, right, obviously, we all choose our paths. You get to decide when you want to have children and all of that. But when you start to get up there in your 40s, right? Like, I feel like if children is something that you wanted, you pretty much know earlier on. So why didn't you prepare for that? And why didn't you make sure that it happened? Because the older that you get, and if you're dating women around your age, a lot of those women are not trying to have children. And I mean, you can always find a one, right? That person that's for you, you may possibly find them. But I feel like this is an issue that he not is only gonna have on this show, but he's also talked about having that issue previously. It's gonna be very difficult. The older that you get, to find a woman who would be willing to have a baby. And right now we have different ways that we can have a baby, whether that's through surrogacy or adoption or what have you. But I understand why old women who are older don't really want to have kids, right? So for one, you may have been through the process already and your kids are older, you don't want to start over. But also, like, pregnancies can be dangerous for women who are 40 plus. So getting back to Sean telling Sabrina he just, wants to make sure that they are on the same page. So Sabrina is like, okay, what does that mean? And what do you want? And he surprised me because I thought that he would like tell her, like, I want to have more kids, so I don't know if this would work out for us. But he's just like, well, right now I want you. And he, in his confessional, was like, maybe the right woman could change my perspective. But I'm like, I don't know, because if that's something that you truly desire, would you be willing to give it up, right? Would you be willing to sacrifice that, knowing that you will never have a child? So we move on to Phil and Aisha. They're on a date. I'll preface this by saying, like, I was kind of wrong about Phil, giving him a hard time, like, oh, we don't really see him. I don't really feel like he gives a lot. But, he was having a conversation with Aisha. He's like, okay, I want to dig deeper. Um, so I've been hearing different things. So you don't want to have any more kids. And she's just like, I stay pretty surface level with that. I tell people I don't want any more kids. And because I feel comfortable with you and because I trust you, I will tell you more. I'll tell you the reason why. So basically, she has gone through some troubling pregnancies. She's like, the two kids that she does have, she almost lost both of them. Thankfully they survived. They experienced a miscarriage. And so it's just like, that's what I was saying earlier when I talked about, like, some women don't want to have children or have more children for different reasons. Like, some women really go through traumatic pregnancies, and it's really hard to deal with emotionally, to try at it again. Even when you love somebody, like, you find a new man, and you just, you want to give him what he desires, but it's so traumatic for you personally that it's just like, I'm not willing to go through that. But you know what? In the moment, like, she started crying and everything. Like, she's just like, I'm becoming vulnerable. And this is the part that I tried to avoid. But Phil, he went over to console her and comfort her. And that was really nice to see. Like, he really, it seemed like he really cared. Okay, so moving on. Naeem takes Camille out on a date. And he's pretty much just like, she doesn't seem approachable, but he wants to see what's going on. And him and Camille pretty much have a surface level conversation. She's like, oh, you know, how was your day? Like, she doesn't seem like she's very interested in getting to know Naeem, but we all know why. She's obsessed with Cornelius and she believes that's her husband. So, and they get into, them both going to the gym and all these different things. And then Camille's like, we talk all the time, but we've never talked about kids. And so she's like, do you want kids? And he's like, well, I'm more focused on the woman and the marriage, and in the right situation, yes. Okay, so you could have just said yes. So she's like, how many? And he said, okay, well, let's start with one. And then she gets into her son and asks him what he thinks his role would be in his life. Um, and then she brings up finances. So she's like, "What about finances?" So he's like, "Oh, what do you want to hear? That I pay for everything and you get to spend money?" Now, I already told y'all, Naeem is not right. I don't know these people, but from what I'm assuming from this conversation, he doesn't seem like a wealthy man and he doesn't seem like a generous man because he is not about to support a lifestyle for a woman that he's dating. And I seen that on the date with Zadia, and we're seeing it here now. Like, why is it such a big issue for you? And so, like, I think he really took offense to her, like, bringing up a conversation about money. She even asked him how much money he makes, and she was like, "It's at least six figures, right?" And he wouldn't answer her. And I just feel like men who are concerned about sharing that information with somebody that you want to date, um, don't really have it, in my experience. Men who have money don't have a problem telling you about what they have going on. And he's like, it's a red flag for me when a woman abruptly brings up finances. Yeah, because you don't like that money talk. Because you ain't really got it, bruh. So Naeem is just like, he was able to see the different sides of Camille. She's crazy and all over the place, but he's looking for a woman who is more grounded and centered. And in my mind, that sounds like you want a woman who's more humbled. You don't want a woman who will be another bill for you. And you know what? That's his business. But mm, men who are not generous rub me the wrong way. So we have a double date. Sabrina, Moomin, Dante, and Frank. They do some mini golf together and then they split off into pairs. So we have Dante and Sabrina. And he, in his confessional before they went on his date, was like something about the ladies needing to compete or something. And I'm like, for what? Dante, you are not a prize. So him and Sabrina are talking. And Sabrina was just talking about how, like, moments like this are important to her. And she starts to get into how her baby daddy has never been involved in her child's life, which is pretty sad. Um, and she gets into Dante's kids. She's like, "Yeah, so don't you have two girls and one boy?" He's like, "Yeah, and I have three baby mamas." What? Excuse me? I knew something was off about him, right? And that might not be the biggest thing, but three kids, three baby mamas. And now you up here talking about you looking for love. So why couldn't you find love within those three women? I'm very confused. And right, like, things don't always work out, but that's a red flag to me. And then he was like, for the most part, the relationship with the mothers are good. For the most part, that means that y'all don't have some issues. He's the one he don't do the drama. Okay, you don't have to do no drama, but that don't mean that the drama won't get brought to you with three damn baby mamas. And he's just like, women pretty much X me out once they hear that, as they should. Who wouldn't deal with three baby mamas? I wouldn't. So then we move on to Moomin and Frank. And Moomin is just like, she's really feeling Frank. He seems like a leader and he's somebody that, like, she would follow as her man. And they get into her abstinence, and Frank is just like, "Yeah, so I know you said that you're saving yourself for a marriage." And she's like, "Yeah, I don't want to lead with sex because it seems like it clouds judgment, basically." And basically Frank was just asking her, has he ever had sex? He's a hypersexual person and blah 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 blah. And Mumin is just like, she appreciates the fact that he was upfront and honest with her because that helps them to grow their connection. And I'm just like, how? Because this man is telling you that he likes to have sex and doesn't he has never had to wait for it. So a situation between y'all might not work out, even though he says that um he believes that they do have a deep connection, and that may trump him trying to have sex with her. I just don't. I don't see it, especially for somebody who's just like, well, I'm open to it. His first thing is, well, I'm hypersexual, and I feel like I get to know you better if we're being physical. Like, no. So Tatia and Sean have a date, and I was actually pretty happy to see her go out on a date with someone who was taking interest in her and has some of the same interests. So, they talked about different things about like religion and being from the South and wanting kids. So that was great to see. Um, the date went pretty well because, Sean said he was feeling her. So I'm like, finally, she gets a connection because I didn't feel like she was really connecting with anybody else. So Cornelius and Courtney go on a date, and I've been thinking from the start of this season that Courtney and Camille were Cornelius's top, and I felt like Camille was the safe girl, Courtney was the fun girl, and he always seemed to be looking for Courtney, like whenever there were group events. Even with like Camille all in his face, it seemed like his eyes was looking around trying to see where Courtney is at and what she's doing. But he seems to be a little bit uncomfortable with her because he is like very set on like not making sex the foundation of a relationship, and he says that he wants to wait. He says like to commit Courtney, you're a little bit younger than me, have you got all the like basically the craziness out of your system? And she's like, yeah. And so Courtney is pretty much just like, are you sure you want to wait? Because like I'm a very sexual person, and I'm just like, Cornelius absolutely gets to have boundaries, right? Like Courtney, I don't think that she's willing to wait. Like she want to see what you're working with. Like so, like, cause how long are we waiting? So then we move on, and all the men come together. Everybody's talking about who they like and who they don't like. A couple of things stuck out to me. Um, so Sean said he's feeling Tasia, and she's giving a Jill Scott vibe, and she's a ride or die. Now, I don't like those descriptors for a couple of different reasons. Tasia, she's bigger than the other girls on the show, but I wouldn't necessarily put her in a category of a BBW. But I feel like these men are looking at her like she's a bigger woman. So you're comparing her to Jill Scott, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with Jill Scott. Jill Scott's a beautiful woman, but when men usually make that comparison, they are looking for a woman who is motherly, who is going to take care of them. He's talking about ride or die. Ride or die. What are we riding for? What are we dying for? Like, sir, we still don't even know if you really have a job, Sean. So what's going on? And so obviously, like when they get to like who they're feeling, a lot of the people are having the same connection. So like Dante's like he's feeling Zadia and Shiloh, and we know that Phil is feeling Shiloh, and he's also feeling Aisha. Frank is feeling Aisha, and he's also feeling Moomin. Walter's also feeling Moomin, and he likes Sabrina. Like, and there was a bunch of guys who said they like Sabrina. So there's a lot of the connections that are overlapping. And then we get down to who they're truly not feeling. So surprisingly, a lot of the men were saying Courtney, and I'm like, oh, that's surprising to me because she seems like a preference. Um, she's talkative. She kind of has a bubbly personality. Um, so I was surprised to see that a lot of men are like, no. So Cornelius in particular was just like, he's not feeling her based off the fact that she's not going to respect the boundary that he doesn't want to have sex. He says that she's younger and she's like a party girl. He's not really feeling that. And you know what? I'm just like, I get it. And you say that you like a woman who knows what he wants, and when he says that, he's describing Camille. But like maybe you want to be locked down like that. I don't know. The situation with him and Camille, I don't really like how Camille be acting. It's a bit much. So Frank says that he's not feeling Courtney either. He says the first day he met her, it just seems like she had eyes for everybody else. Y'all in a group setting, what is she supposed to do? And then Dante says that Courtney feels like the homie. And I'm like, when have y'all ever hung out? But I kind of get it. So Courtney and Camille are in the bottom two. Now, I am surprised by Courtney being in the bottom two, but I am also happy that Tasia is not in the bottom two just because these other men are not giving her a chance. So Walter takes out Courtney and Dante takes out Camille. So Dante is just like, we had a group meeting and Camille is just like, you need to hurry this up. Like we need to get through this because I have to start fasting at 7. I'm like, oh God. And he's, just going on and on. And then he's just like, the men have decided that you are not ready to go home. Right? He stalled it out. And she's like, oh, I was about to say, F you, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I get it. And Cornelius saying that Camille is his only one, I think, saved. I don't know. And I guess it outweighed, right? Like, so more men were saying that they weren't really feeling Courtney. Walter had to have that conversation with her. And he was getting into how, a lot of the men don't think that you're taking this seriously. And he was like, a lot of the men don't believe that you're ready to love. And she was in her confessional crying. She said, I talked to my mom and my mom told me that my journey doesn't end here. And it was like, I don't feel like she wasn't taking it seriously. I think that the situation with Corey probably threw her off. Um, her other option was Cornelius, which he was not budging on, not willing to have sex early on in a relationship. But I don't know. It's just like people will go through things, right? Because Corey being eliminated just happened the previous week. And I don't feel like they give people time to recover, which, right, realistically, there's not really a lot of time. But you didn't really give her time to make any other connections. So her one date was with Cornelius, and he was just like, nah, she's off my list. And now she's packing it up and gotta go home. So that's how the episode ended. You guys let me know what you thought about this episode, and I will speak to you next time.